So first we have to know, what is Kedusha? Parashat Kedoshim, next week's parasha in America, it's already this week's parasha in Israel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל כל עדת בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, קדושים תהיו, כי קדוש אני, אדוני אלוהיכם. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, speak to the entire assembly of the children of Israel, and say to them, you shall be holy, for holy am I, Hashem your God. Chachamim ask, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu here adding a word? It says, Kol Edat Bnei Israel. Not just Daber Bnei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, but rather speak like Kol Edat, to everyone. Midrash Rabbah says, and says the Rambam, the Ramban, Rashi, everybody agrees. Because this pasuk is relevant to every single person that ever lived before and after the pasuk. Every child, every adult, every teenager, everybody. The religious, the Baal Tshuva, the convert, everybody. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you be holy, because I'm holy. So the Ramban wants to tell us what is holiness. What is this holiness? Why do we even need this holiness? Why is it being spoken to everybody like this? What's so special about it? So the Ramban says, first and foremost, know this. This pasuk, if you understand it, then you understand the Torah. If you don't, you have no shayachut whatsoever to the Torah. This pasuk, Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani, is the foundation of the entire Torah. Because the vast majority of all of the laws of the Torah depend on this pasuk. Rashi says, what is Kedoshim? To be removed from forbidden sexual relationships and from any sin of similar immorality. For every place in the Torah that you find restriction of sexual immorality, you will find the mention of being holy, of Kedoshim. And the same goes, as a side note, society. Any society, any community where you see that the standard teachings are to be separated from immorality, to be removed from immorality, you will find yourself a holy community. Any community where morality is simply up for grabs, whoever defines it one way is right, everybody's right. One guy thinks he's moral because his boyfriend and him decide to have a son together. They're legally married, him and his boyfriend. So they're moral, according to him. And they're adopting Shmuli from the farm. But they're going to change his name to Shmuel, because they want to be moral. Then you have another lady, she's also moral, according to her. It's only her 6th husband in the last 5 years. She's very moral. She even covers her hair. Very moral. Just so happened that she can't get along with any guy. And she somehow finds guys to marry her very quickly. It's miraculous. The entire world has a shidduch problem, but she finds a husband every year. Amazing. Very moral. Everybody thinks morality is whatever you... Rashi says, morality is something extraordinary. Why? Because morality is one of the fundamentals that are required in order to achieve holiness. Any place where there are teachings of morality, especially when it comes to sexuality, where they teach you to separate yourself from promiscuity and from all the garbage of the world, that place will have holiness. Any place where people can wear whatever they want, be whatever they want, do whatever they want, no holiness whatsoever. Simple. If you are finding yourself in a community where the rabbi's wife is wearing no arms, no legs, you have found yourself an immoral place. If you're in a community where the rabbi talks about tikkun habrit, talks about morality, talks about all the things that this parasha talks about, you have found yourself a good community. Simple. And you'll also find that the rabbi that speaks about morality and scares people somehow always tends to have a more modest keilah. It's always the coincidence that the one that speaks the truth always happens to have the best tzaddikim. And the one that pretends like he's speaking the truth, but he tells you can do whatever you want, just don't kill anybody, or at least don't get caught, somehow nobody covers their hair or their body or anything else. So Rashi says this kedusha has to do with morality. The Ramban, on the other hand, elaborates. Nachmanides says kedushim is prushim. Kedushim is prushim. Prushim is removed ones. Just like Rashi said, removed from forbidden sexual relationships, but not only that, removed from the things that are forbidden and even the things that are permitted to a certain extent. And to read his language exactly, he says the following: Kedoshim is prushim, even from permitted things, because if this only referred to forbidden sexual relations and, let's say, forbidden foods, then one could rationalize excessive relation with his own wife, or just simply have many wives. If you just tell me I'm not allowed to be with the sister, with the mother, with all this animals, whatever it is, okay, fine, so I'll just be with this one woman and I'll simply be with her nonstop. Or I'll simply get a new wife every month. So Ramban says it cannot mean just forbidden relationships. You also, to be kadosh, you also have to monitor the things that are permitted too. Because if you don't monitor them, if you don't control them, then you could simply use the Torah in order to be despicable. It's called naval birshut Torah, despicable in the name of a Torah. Where he says, no, look, it's allowed to be with my wife. Yeah, it's allowed to be with your wife, but nobody says you have to be a rooster 15 times a day all month. Yeah, it's allowed, you're allowed to eat as long as it's kosher, but nobody said eat like your head every day and gain 5 pounds a meal. It's allowed, but nobody says you have to do it that much. And nobody permitted it. So the Ramban says, Kedusha is not just what Rashi said, but even further. You have to control yourself, even when it comes to the things that are permitted. But for those of you that may take this a little too far, where some people say, oh, so that means that every time I'm with my wife, it's only to make kids. No, not necessarily. There are a couple of mitzvot that have to do with relations with the wife and husband. It's not just to bring kids. If that was the case, everybody would have to get divorced at some point. In fact, the Minchat Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya, alav shalom, a Talmid Chacham came to him and told me he had a dream that he needs help with. What was his dream? He saw that there was a candle that was that he put into some type of pot from what's it called? Earthenware type of pot. And he saw that the candle is lit, but barely coming out of, you could barely see the light. And then it turned off, and then 3 times. This is a weird dream. So I wanted the Chacham to tell me. Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya gave him an interpretation. He says, no, come on, no, please, tell me the truth. Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya says to him, I'm only going to tell you the truth if you promise me that you're going to admit that it's true. Because I know you're not going to want to admit. He says, yeah, sure, Chacham, what? He says, the dream means, last night, you woke up 3 times with a desire to be with your wife. But you figured, nah, and you went back to sleep. He says, Chacham, how'd you know? He says, that's what the dream says. He goes, but how did you get it from the dream? He says, the light is the light of love. And it didn't go up, it was barely, why? Because you didn't actually do the act. He says, why do I have this dream? You're being rebuked from Shamayim for not fulfilling the mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to be with your wife. Even if you're a Chacham, there's a time and a place for everything. Not always for kids. So Kedusha is not necessarily only just what people think it is. But it's very, very important to know that even what's allowed has to be under control. The Ramban continues and he says that a person has to be pure and clean and removed from the masses of people who soil themselves with excesses of permitted behavior and with unseemly things. So now that we see that there is a definition of Kedusha here, and the Ramban and also Rashi call these Kedushim, they call them, what do they call them? Prushim. Prushim. Ones that separate themselves. We then understand a little bit more about what these Chachamim were talking about. They're not telling you that they're lusting towards the forbidden relationships. Rabbi Meir is not lusting towards his daughter, and Rabbi Tarfon is not lusting towards his daughter-in-law. But rather, they're so careful with the law that they don't want to risk anything. Simple. They're what's called prushim. Prushim means that they're even separating themselves from what even would be considered permitted. Why? I can't trust myself even. And what about that Talmid that made fun of him? Says the Gemara, the Talmid that made fun of Rabbi Tarfon. Says Rabbi Abau in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Only a few days passed before that Talmid fell with his mother-in-law. That Talmid that made fun of Rabbi Tarfon, oh, come on, Rabbi. You're 80 years old, you're afraid to be with your daughter-in-law. Come on, you're joking, right? That Talmid fell with his mother-in-law. Made a sin with his mother-in-law. Why? If you're so righteous, how come you fell? When you make fun of things, it shows what you believe. It shows you believe that this is not relevant to you.